Hi everyone, welcome back to Hoopsa. Today I am joined by Jack Reeve of Talk Norwich City. Hi Jack.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting
good,
me.
thanks. No problem at all. Today we're going to do a Norwich City match preview. So of course QPR are playing away at Norwich this Saturday now that the international break is thankfully coming to an end. We're just going to do the usual format, jump into some questions, get your thoughts on Norwich's season so far. So I know that Wagner has had a pretty good start to life at Norwich City last season. There was 6 wins and a draw in his first 10 games. But things sort of soured from March onwards, didn't they? I think it was 1 win in 11 and ultimately a mid-table finish. And things looked like they'd started to turn around a little bit at the start of this season after quite a busy summer transfer window. Obviously, Norwich were unbeaten in August. But since then, the team's form has dipped again with just 3 wins from 12. Although they did get back to winning form just before the international break with a 3-2 win away at Cardiff. So, talk to me about the manager. What's gone wrong? Do you think it's time to go?
Yeah, some good research there, and I tried to kind of to put some of those stats to the back of my mind because, as you say, really quite damning. A good start, and I think it's been a really interesting couple of seasons for Norwich City. We obviously had the joys of Daniel Farker and the promotions that brought, and the evident kind of. And what preceded that was a couple of really difficult Premier League seasons. I think most championship teams who get promoted who don't have kind of endless backing suffer. So we were kind of caught up in that ideology and the way that Farker played. And then we transitioned to Dean Smith in this hope that he would be the man that could kind of solidify us and take us back to the Premier League in a slightly different tack. And that evidently didn't work. So Wagner was kind of almost this similar cut of Daniel Farker, and he'd worked with our now former sporting director Stuart Webber before, and there was a relationship there. And as you say, it started really well, and Norwich were playing some really nice stuff, and then it kind of tailed off. I think once people had figured out how to play us, and it did feel slightly one-dimensional. It's great when it works, but it seems like it's fairly easy to kind of figure out how to defend against. Coming into this season, I think myself and most Norwich fans expected maybe like a mid-table finish. So to have the start that we did threw us slightly because, you know, we were scoring lots of goals, we were winning games, I think we're in the top two for a few weeks, and we thought,
Mm.
oh, okay, there might be something happening here. And there are injuries to Josh Sargent and Ashley Barnes. I mean, you take the first kind of, you know, first and second choice striker out of any team, I think they're going to struggle. And definitely for us, that happened. But since then, I mean, defensively, we've been really poor. I thought that we'd make a change going into this game in terms of managerial duty. That hasn't been the case. They're sticking with Wagner. I would definitely be changing him. I think we've given him enough time, but the club clearly think that he deserves more. So we've got a run now where we've got yourselves, we've got the Sheffield Wednesday kind of in the next 5 games. I think they deem this as a fairly winnable run. It could obviously go the other way, but Wagner's given time. I'm not sure I would have given him that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, sometimes, the board come out and say they're going to back the manager, and that's normally the damning statement, really, and could quickly go wrong, especially if QPR do manage to get a win. As I was researching Norwich, I saw that they're actually joint tops for goals scored this season alongside Leicester City, which is pretty impressive. But you've also conceded the second most alongside Rotherham, who currently sit in the relegation zone. So, manager aside, why do you think the team can't strike the right balance? Is it the injury problems? Is it a lack of squad quality?
Oh, I think it's a bit of both, mate. It's as you say, well, we've certainly not had an issue of scoring goals. We've had a 4-4, we've had a couple of 3-2s, both winning and losing. So they've been dramatic, and it's almost been a sense of, you score two, we'll try and score three. I think you look back at the Huddersfield team that Wagner got promoted, what was that, 5-6 years ago, maybe longer ago. And they went up with a negative goal difference. This has never been a strong point for Wagner. So I don't think injuries have helped, and people might be confused when I say that because most of our injuries have come in the attacking areas, but what Josh Sargent and Ashley Barnes brought to this team was a philosophy, and they encompassed that, and they pressed from the front. I think that was really important to the way that in which we played and tried to play. So I think you've got injuries. I think you've got a manager who doesn't put a huge amount of emphasis on a really kind of strong back line. And you've also got a fairly experienced, if I'm being polite, slow and old, if I'm not being polite, centre-back pairing that was Shane Duffy and Ben Gibson. And that has changed in the last few weeks, but that's been, what it's been for the majority of this season. So it's a mixture. I think it really comes down to the way that Wagner's trying to get this team to play, and he wants a free-flowing style, and he wants an attacking kind of spirit, and that is great at times, but I think we've averaged, we've conceded more than 2 goals a game. That's not a sustainable way of playing in this division if you want success, and fortunately that's been the way it's been.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we just touched on a minute ago, obviously, they've said that Wagner has the board support, but the pressure is clearly on. And as I say, I think, a home loss to QPR, a team that's not won in 11 league matches, probably would be the final straw. So if he does go, who would you want to replace him? Do you have any names in mind?
It's really funny you say that, because there's probably been 5 or so games in the last 10 where you've gone, if we don't win this is the last, this is the last straw. And you expect you wait for days after it and it doesn't come. And let's say you guys do beat us at this weekend. I fully suspect that they will maintain and they will keep him. We've got a new sporting director that's just come in Ben Napper. I think he wants time to see what Wagner's all about. So yeah, I mean, it's always difficult when people ask this question, because I feel like a bit of a hypocrite saying, I want him to go, but I don't know who I want to come in. Norwich have historically had more success when someone's come in and you've never heard of them. You look at Daniel Farker, you look at even Alex Neil. If you hadn't followed Scottish football closely, you probably wouldn't have known much about Alex Neil. And going further back, there's more examples. Someone who probably ticks a lot of boxes, maybe not, probably won't come, is Mark Robins at Coventry. Obviously has links with Norwich. Coventry aren't doing too great this season. I like the way that they play. I like the way that he's really progressed that side on over the last couple of seasons. He's probably the standout in terms of, championship managers, I guess. But you would hope that Norwich have more visibility across other divisions than I do. And I think with all clubs, mate, you'll be the same. It's often those that you've never heard of that go on to do good things. So Robbins would be the kind of mainstream pick, but I hope there's more out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously QPR have got Martí Cifuentes in as their new manager. He's been in for 2 games now. This will be his 3rd game. And it's quite strange how, a relatively unknown coach has, despite not having a win so far, has managed to sort of lift the fan base a little bit. And I do think there is something to be said about, bringing in a manager that's not collared with, their previous managerial experience that everyone knows about, and they'll say, oh, well, he's rubbish at this club. There's something about, if you can get the right one, an unknown coming in and just giving a completely, clean slate.
Absolutely. It's the intrigue and it's the unknown, and you're kind of wanting to figure out yourself, and you're seeing everything unfold in front of your eyes for the first time. We would have all watched, if we're using Robbins as an example, we've all watched Coventry and we know what they're about, so we kind of know what we're expecting. You guys have got the joy of figuring that out for the first time with your new guy, and that's what football's all about. It's exciting. It could go really well. It could go, it could go very wrong, but that's the joy of football.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about Saturday's match. Who should QPR fans be worried about in terms of the Norwich City side? I know Jonathan Rowe has had a cracking start to the season. Obviously 20 years old. He's had 8 goals in 18 games in all competitions. Though I did see that there were some injury concerns around him. So
yeah, Jonathan Rowe's been incredible. I mean, he's been on the radar for a little while. He actually made his debut for Norwich when we were in the Premier League, and I think he was 17, 18 at the time, and has had lots of injury problems since then. And when he was thrown into the side at the start of this year, we knew this name, but we didn't know too much about him. And he's been phenomenal. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Probably one of the standout, young players, not only at Norwich, but in the league this season. You're right. He picked up an injury on England under 20 duty last week. So he's withdrawn from the international camp. We don't know the extent of that. So I suspect he will be out for this weekend's game, which is a massive shame. The other one is Gabriel Sara. Sara is a kind of in between a number 10 and someone that plays slightly deeper. He is a phenomenal footballer, and I can't imagine we keep hold of him for too much longer. We brought him in from Brazil. We've tried to really kind of branch out our scouting network across Brazil. We had a really strong kind of scouting infrastructure in Germany, and I think since Brexit has happened, it's made bringing in players from there mightily difficult. Norwich deemed Brazil still to be quite an undervalued market, so we brought him in. We brought Marcelino Nunez in from Chile, kind of that South American market. So Sarah's certainly the one to keep an eye on. He's you'll watch him. He's technically so gifted. He's good in front of goal. He can pick a pass. He can drop deep. He's got everything. Unfortunately, he's playing in a team that isn't too good this season, which you always start to get worried, don't you? And you've had it in the last few seasons where you just know that you've got to enjoy them while they last, because bigger teams will come in and poach them. So, but yeah, Sarah's the one to know. Rowe's been brilliant, but I don't think he'll play this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, yeah, it's going to be good to look out for Sarah, and as you say, we're very familiar with those players that you just want to hold on to for a lot longer. But unfortunately, Championship football, when you're part of a side that doesn't kind of make that run for the playoffs or doesn't go for promotion season after season, that squad starts to get dismantled, doesn't it? And it can be really hard to keep those gems.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because I guess that's how football works and society in general. But you do the hard grounds of scouting and find someone who's you pick them up for cheaper than they should have been, and then the bigger teams, the top six. We've had it with Buendia and Maddison in the past few years, and Ben Godfrey and Omobamidele. I mean, the most frustrating ones are the players you sell who were, first choice, week in, week out, and then a big team buys them and they just sit on the bench. And you go,
I know, yeah.
What a waste. But yeah, it's frustrating. And that's just the brutality of the Championship, because just as you think you've got a good thing going, often, those players will get ripped apart if it's not instant success, and you can see something building and you can see something growing. But if it doesn't happen straight away, it becomes really difficult.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, it is interesting when you speak to fans of other clubs, because I think sometimes, as a fan of your own, you can get very introverted in the views of your club and think that this only happens to you, and why is the club so rubbish at keeping hold of players, or vice versa. But actually, you speak to anyone of any team across the league, and it's a very similar story. And QPR, to some extent, have almost gone the opposite end of the scale, where we've not cashed in on players perhaps when we should have, and now they've gone. You take a player like Elias Chair, for example, but numbers wise, he's probably had his poorest season so far for QPR in probably 4 or 5 years. And you sort of, as much as I want to keep hold of him, you sort of start to think, God, are we devaluing him a little bit now? Should we have taken an offer? But yeah, hopefully he starts to play himself back into some form now that Marty Cifuentes is on board. So, as I say, Marty Cifuentes is still looking for a first win. You'll be pleased to know that QPR haven't won at Carrow Road since the 17th of September 2008.
Couldn't believe that. Yeah.
Which was
more recent. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. So yeah, let's get your score prediction for Saturday.
Yeah, look, it's fascinating. I think the positive for you guys is you've got that. Is it still a new manager bounce? I think we'll call it that. And there's almost nothing to lose for you guys. I know that you just need to start winning games and winning them quickly, but Carrow Road's been a fairly easy place to come for a lot of teams this season. It's a place where us as home fans go with a slight bit of trepidation, knowing how poor we've been, and we've been served up some real dross this season. So if QPR can take an early lead, fans will start to turn, and once we go behind, we don't come back. I think there's only really been one occasion, and that was last week against Cardiff, where we came from behind to win, but that was a bit of an anomaly, and it was away from home. So look, Norwich have quality. We've got undoubted quality. I mentioned Sarah. We've got Jack Stacey, who's done it in this league before. You've got Dimian Ulis at left back, who's at one point was really highly rated across Europe. So there is talent in here, but unlocking it's been seemingly really difficult. So I think Norwich will edge it, and of course that is that's coming at it with a slight bias. I saw glimpses of goodness against Cardiff last week. But in terms of opportunities to win games, I think this is one you need to target. Plenty of teams have rolled us over this season. Plenty more will. There's certainly not too many places to go that are easier than Carrow Road at the moment. So, your new man will if he can get them fired up and almost say like, this is kind of last chance saloon. If you can't win here, then you're not going to win at too many places. Then you've got a real opportunity. Having said that, I think we've got the quality to edge it. I'll go for a nervy 2-1.
I think that's a sensible prediction, because you said about taking an early lead there. We don't take early leads, and we rarely score more than one.
Well, that sounds like a good combination. But yeah, we're coming into it with nerves, and I don't think that's ever a good place to be as a football team. So best of luck. Travel well in numbers. I've always loved coming to QPR as an away day. It's always, well, I actually think on paper it's probably our closest away day, which is mental. Before Ipswich, of course, got back into the Championship, and they're a touch closer now. But I've always enjoyed it. So best of luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much for joining, Jack.
Thanks very much, mate. Take care.